Do people still buy and sell homes in Las Vegas? Well, let's talk about that. I'm Jason Miller with the Chong Miller Group, and this is the June 2020 residential real estate market update for the Las Vegas Valley. We will be looking today at the statistics from May of 2020 for single-family homes on the resale market in the Las Vegas Valley. Now, a couple of issues. The first issue I want to talk about is the number of transactions that actually took place. So I have been perhaps a bit optimistic about the state of the market and the ability of the market to plow through some of the issues associated with the coronavirus and the stay-at-home orders. The market does still exist. It still continues to function, although it continues to function with only with greater levels of effort applied on particular transactions. So in other words, transactions are not happening smoothly right now. There needs to be a lot of additional effort that you put into making sure a transaction goes through the process. Now, I do want to point out that properties that closed in May, the typical transaction takes about 30 days. So properties that closed in May went into contract in April. That means that properties that closed in May experienced almost the entire life cycle of search, contract negotiation, contract signing, inspections, appraisals, etc. through closing during the months of April and May. So 100% of the transaction was impacted by stay-at-home orders during this coronavirus issue. Unlike April's numbers, which were perhaps not completely impacted, these were completely impacted. So the one other thing I'd like to point out is I'm recording this on June 3rd. I'm recording this a bit earlier than normal. There are possible changes to the numbers that I'm presenting to you. The changes should be pretty small, but some agents report a little bit late at the beginning of the month. And so I'm doing this recording a little bit early because tomorrow I'm going to be on an inspection the whole day, and I don't want to wait until Friday to get this information out. This is important and very timely information. So let's go ahead and get started looking at the data. Okay, so the first piece of data I want to look at is the number of transactions. Now, in May 2020, single-family resale residential properties in the Las Vegas Valley, there were 1,580 closed transactions. Transactions that went all the way to the end and the deed transferred, title transferred from seller to buyer. 1,580. So the market's happening, it's functioning. But I do want to point out that's down 14.6% from the 1,850 that closed in April of 2020. It's also down 49% from the 3,093 that closed in May of 2019. So the market's moving forward, but it's definitely at a slow pace. In fact, for historical comparison, let me point this out to you. We have to go all the way back to March of 2008 to find a lower number of transactions that took place in the Las Vegas Valley. That happened to be 1,379 transactions in that month. So that's clearly not super fantastic news. I was, as I said, a little over-optimistic in terms of the market continuing to look in May as it did in April. Now, I do believe that this is probably the low point for a number of transactions. The economy is starting to open back up. Phase 1 opening happened a couple weeks ago. Phase 2 started happening last week. Casinos, resorts start to be able to reopen this weekend. Still, though, regular open houses are not going on. There's still difficulty getting people out and looking. Now, let's move on to the next statistic. because it's interesting. In May of 2020, even though number of transactions were down very considerably, pricing is holding firm. Prices actually increased. The median sales price was $310,000. That's up from $305,300, or up 1.5% on the median from April 2020. It's also up from $299,900, or 3.5% from where we were in May of last year. So pricing looks like it's staying stable, maybe going up very slightly. In fact, let me talk about the per foot pricing of properties that actually closed. In May, the median price per square foot was $172. That's up $1 from the median price per square foot in April, and it's up 2.5% from $168 per foot last year, May of 2019. So remember, because we're looking at the median price, that takes that looks at the middle transaction in the market, so half above and half below. So that's not being significantly influenced by perhaps some very expensive properties transacting, or fewer in the lower part of the market transacting. Rather, it is the middle number. So median price per foot, like it did last month in April, actually went up again in May of 2020 by $1 a foot, and so we're at 172. In fact, interestingly, you have to go all the way back to August of 2007 to find a higher price per foot, median price per foot, in the valley. Now, those numbers are interesting, okay? What about supply? Because I've been saying supply is extremely constrained, and supply, or the lack thereof, is what's causing, one of the two factors that's causing pricing to be supported and perhaps be moving higher as we go through this process. At the end of May of 2020, there were 6,153 properties for sale, single-family home for sale in the Las Vegas Valley. That's down a little bit from the end of April, which was 6,711. It's down about 8%. It's also down 35% from where we were last year. May 2019 ended that month with 9,495 properties on the market. So we're down a third from last year. Let's give some historical context to that number of houses in the market. Again, we have to go back to 2008. We've only seen 8 months where inventory has been lower than what it is right now since 2008. 2 of those months were at the beginning of this year, January and February of 2020. And we know what was happening on prices then. Prices were moving up, which is unusual at that particular time of year, because fewer people are looking to actually buy properties in January and February because of seasonal issues. And inventory was considered tight last year. In fact, inventory last year, May of 2019, we had 3.8 months worth of inventory in the market. And generally, if you've got anything less than 5 to 6 months, it's considered a seller's market because inventory is tight. So last year, we ended May with 3.8 months of supply. We're down 34% on that. We're down to 2.5 months worth of supply. We're actually down 7% from last month, where we ended at 2.7 months worth of supply. There are people who need to sell. Not a whole lot, but there are people who need to sell. There are people who need to buy. And there are people who want to buy. In fact, what I'm seeing right now in this market is buyers are coming back into the market more quickly than sellers are coming into the market. And that means the inventory, as we get through June, is going to actually become even tighter. I don't know how long it'll take sellers to get back into the market. Open houses right now are scheduled to begin again at the beginning of July. And so I anticipate that sellers will come back into the market in July, and we'll start seeing a more balanced market between buyers and sellers. The story in this market, three stories. One, the market continues to exist. Transactions are occurring, although at a slower rate. Two, inventory is incredibly tight and it's pushing prices higher, slowly, but higher. And interest rates are at historical lows. And so if you qualify for a mortgage, and obviously that's one of the headwinds in this market right now, there are a lot of people who are unemployed and so they cannot get a mortgage. There are people who are simply concerned and don't want to take out a mortgage right now. But for those people who do, you're able to get funding. Frankly, you're able to get funding on a 30-year mortgage at 3%. You may be able to get it at 2.75%. I even saw something listed at 2.625% the other day. Getting interest rates that low is basically like getting free money. Right now, we don't have inflation, but the Fed generally looks to have about 2 to 2.5% inflation in the market. And what that means is if you're getting an interest rate that's something 2.5 to 3%, and when you take out the tax benefit of interest on a primary residence being tax deductible, literally you're being given free money to borrow to buy a house. And so that's supporting pricing and going to be pushing pricing higher. So we've got tremendous dollar support under this market right now, meaning prices are not collapsing. I do not foresee them collapsing. I foresee them moving higher. Now, the number of transactions, low, right? We'll continue to see difficulty moving transactions through the marketplace. Nobody's going to simply fall into a completed sales transaction over the next few months, as they've not been over the past 2 months. Rather, you're going to need to have an agent who really understands not just this market, but all of the details about how to get through a transaction and how to force the transaction to actually take place. If you will, right now, transactions, while they're occurring as though somebody's been throwing sand into the process to slow down the process, to gum up the wheels of the transaction processing system. So you need an agent who really knows what they're doing. You need an agent who's going to be on top of and pushing forward on the issues all the time. Both you, your counterparty, the escrow company, the banks, everybody who's involved, the appraisers, the inspectors, everyone who's involved in the transaction. Your agent needs to be corralling them and pushing them in the way that they need to go in order to get the transactions done. At the Chong Miller Group, we know the process. We specialize in getting people from start to finish. May of 2020 was actually tied for our best month in terms of transaction volume, and it was actually our best month in terms of gross sales. So we're able to get people through this. We're able to get people into contract, whether you're a buyer or you're a seller. We're able to get you through the contract process and to the close. We look forward to being able to do that for you. So please reach out to us, talk with us. We'd be happy to sit down and talk with you and figure out what makes sense for you to go forward. If you're a seller and you need to sell, contact us. We can help you get through that process. There are people who are looking. There are more buyers coming into the market right now who are looking. And if you're a buyer, we know where inventory is. We know how to find that inventory, and we know how to compete your offer with a seller better than most agents who are out there. So please give us a call. You can reach us at the phone number or email address on the screen. And we look forward to talking with you, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks.